Architect versus Tapped Out versus Moxfield. What is the best place to brew your decks? I'm going to compare how well these do with some important features, rate them out of 10, and then at the end I will add it all up and explain why you would choose specific deck builders over others. Searching cards. Architect has a syntax search and advanced search, which is friendly to people who know Scryfall syntax and those who don't. The omission of the criterion box in the advanced search is the only wrong thing with this method. 9 out of 10. Moxfield has syntax search, and if you don't know Scryfall syntax, you'll have to search Scryfall, then copy-paste the syntax. Either way, this is a huge disadvantage. The results of the search also take up way too much space, and if you want to leave the search to check something in your deck, then go back to the search, it will have scrolled you to the top, which is a major issue for searches with hundreds of results. 4 out of 10, but if you know syntax, then it's 7 out of 10. Tapped Out doesn't have advanced search. 1 out of 10. If you just do searches on the Scryfall site, that's fine, but since there's no easy clipboard like there is on EDHREC, you'll have to type out each card you want to add. This is miles more difficult than just doing the search and clicking a button for every card you want to add. I wish that these sites would add a filter for if it's in your deck or if it's in your collection, but they don't, so that's too bad. Categories. Architect is very well done and supports many different things related to categories. You can add custom categories to cards and drag other cards in. You can have cards with multiple categories and have the card show up in the category with a star if you choose custom mode, or fade it out in multiple categories if you choose multiple mode. You can also change the color of the tags in the top right of every card and sort by those. 8 out of 10. Moxfield allows custom categories called tags, and if you give cards multiple tags, then it shows up in both categories. Moxfield also has global tags, so if you tell it that Sol Ring is ramp, then it will remember that, and that is an incredibly helpful tool. There's also a common misconception that you can't drag cards into categories on Moxfield, and this isn't true. Just go into group by custom tag and you can do it. 10 out of 10. For Tapped Out, just add a hashtag and the category name after the card. Maybe it's ramp, draw, or removal. But having to retype these things over and over is a pain. If you put a card in multiple categories, it just shows up multiple times. 4 out of 10. Playtesting. Architect's playtesting feature is pretty good. Many people complain that there is no next turn button, but 1, you can just press U and then D to untap and draw, and 2, you don't really need to tap your lands when playtesting. Skipping this step saves a lot of time. As long as you keep track of your mana, you can just leave it all untapped for the next turn. There's tokens, counters, all relevant zones, and some hotkey support. You can track life, poison, turn, and energy counters. The mulligan tool uses the Vancouver mulligan instead of the London mulligan, but you can just restart for 7 and put stuff on the bottom. 6 out of 10, just above average. Tapped Out is similar but has more warning signs when you mulligan or restart, and great hotkey support. 6 out of 10, just above average. Moxfield doesn't have a mulligan feature, and when you double click to play your cards, they all just stack on top of each other. 4 out of 10, just below average. EDHREC importing. Architect. 10 out of 10, just click export to Architect and you can do anything you want. Moxfield. If you click export to Moxfield, you can't add to a pre-existing deck. You would have to make a new one. If you want to add a deck, you'll have to copy, click import, paste it in, and save it. 7 out of 10. Has some use, but not great. Tapped Out. Go into the edit page and paste it in, or make a new deck and paste it in. 5 out of 10. Import and export features. Architect. Export is very easy to do. You just have to download the file, then copy, paste, or upload the file. Importing is great and supports a lot of different ways it's formatting. Just copy, paste into the edit page. 8 out of 10. Moxfield. Exporting is great and allows copy, pasting. The formatting options are also pretty great. Importing is fairly easy. Just go into import and copy, paste, or upload file. 8 out of 10. Tapped Out. Just paste into the edit tab to import, and you can either copy from the edit tab or export to MTG Arena format, which is commonly used. 7 out of 10, good, but the lack of a file option and the lack of formatting options is an issue. Primer capabilities. A primer is a deck and then a description explaining how that deck plays. Architect and Tapped Out both have descriptions with easy adding of cards. They get 6 out of 10. Moxfield has that and groups of text, so it's easier to skip through and looks good. 9 out of 10. Pricing options / accuracy. Architect has options for Card Kingdom, TCG Player, card hoarder, and card market, but doesn't count shipping. It also lists category and individual card prices. You can just click a button to buy from these stores. 7 out of 10. Moxfield has an update cheapest versions button, which is super helpful for accurate and lower prices, but still doesn't count shipping. You can see individual prices of cards and categories. 8.5 out of 10. Tapped Out has options for Card Kingdom, TCG Player, and card hoarder prices, and lists individual prices. 6 out of 10. Ease of use. This is highly subjective, but I think Architect is slightly easier to use than Moxfield. So I'd give Moxfield a 7.5 out of 10 and Architect an 8 out of 10. Tapped Out is significantly harder to use than either of them and gets a 4 out of 10. Speed of use. How quickly can you build with these? Tapped Out is medium speed as long as you use live edit mode. You can easily add and remove cards and see what they do. When adding cards from a Scryfall search, you have to type them out one by one instead of just running the search in the site like you can in Architect. 4 out of 10. Moxfield is a bit faster, but if you don't know syntax, you'll have to search on Scryfall.com and copy paste. Removing cards is harder than it should be, and there's just too many additional buttons and windows to open. 5 out of 10. Architect is faster with searching, adding cards, removing cards. Most of the things you do are just much faster and involve less opening of menus compared to Moxfield. 6 out of 10. Deck search. Architect has 544,000 commander decks and 340,100 card commander decks. The options for searching are amazing, with options for color, commander, and cards. 8 out of 10. Moxfield has a buried advanced deck search feature. If you want to get it, you have to do this. Search something in the search bar on the homepage. Click search in decks. Click the settings next to the search bar and the advanced search. Click expand advanced options. And you can search by commander, deck name, cards, and hub, which is basically Architect. It's fine, but doesn't support colors. It doesn't have a check for number of cards. This is useful if you only want to see legal decks, and decks default to unlisted, which won't show up in search. Moxfield could have so many more decks to look through if they just defaulted to public. It also has a compare deck feature, which is nice, but adding cards isn't any easier. 4 out of 10, below average. Tapped Out has filters for cards, commander, and colors. It also has options for archetype, although many of these are vague or unclear what these decks/archetypes are. It also has a lot of decks, since it's been one of the most popular deck builders for a long time. And the decks on Tapped Out are much more likely to have a description, since Tapped Out encourages you to make a description. 7 out of 10. Other features. Moxfield's Compare, which compares decks with each other and shows the differences, is nice to have, but not much better than just looking at another list. The token ability on Moxfield and Tapped Out is also nice to have. Architect and Tapped Out's collection feature are also great to have. The EDH Rec recommendation feature on Architect and Moxfield are both pretty helpful. If you're looking to add more cards, it's a good place to check. Apparently Tapped Out goes down a lot, which is a pretty major issue, but I haven't personally had issues with it. I've also heard of a lot of lag and delay for Moxfield. Most of the time this isn't an issue, but I did run into it a couple of times. Architect has undo and redo, which is pretty helpful. Architect has recently deleted, which is very helpful, but I wish it stored the recently deleted cards for longer. Moxfield has version history, which is amazing and basically a better version of recently deleted. Searching for specific cards in your deck is a great feature on Architect. Overall, for other features, Moxfield gets an 8 out of 10, Architect gets a 6 out of 10, Tapped Out gets a 2 out of 10. Which deck builders look better than others is highly subjective, so this isn't counted in my scores. But, in my opinion, Architect and Moxfield look great, and Tapped Out looks horrible. But many people overlook certain deck builders for aesthetics when you can change the look. Moxfield has an image-based version, and Architect has a text-based version. Architect and Moxfield have dark and light mode, so make sure to check this before you count something out. If we input this info into a spreadsheet, we can compare the numbers for the different programs. Tapped Out comes in last with 52 points. Moxfield comes in second place with 75 points. Architect comes in first with 82 points. Here's the takeaway. For most people, Architect is the best choice, but Moxfield is close enough that it's easy for it to be better for you. I also think that Moxfield has the greatest potential for improvement, and with a few updates could definitely surpass Architect for use on a computer. Say I know Scryfall syntax very well, and have been using Moxfield for long enough that it's super fast and easy to use for me. Sure, Architect might be slightly faster in the long run, but for me it's not worth switching. So if you see my findings and think, no, he's wrong, I want to stick with Moxfield, then go for it. But most people would benefit and be happy with the choice of switching to Architect. Best reason I'm wrong about any of these deck builders gets pinned. I think the biggest advantages you'll see are the card search, EDHREC importing, and deck search capabilities. Those will make your experience much better. If you're using Tapped Out, then please switch. What are you doing? Compared to Architect, it's worse in literally every category. Just please stop using it. Another reason you'd want to use Moxfield is if you're brewing on your phone. Let's talk about that for a minute. Architect sort of works, but only if you have a big phone. The site is just clearly built for a computer. I would recommend it if you use your computer 90% of the time. Otherwise, just use Moxfield. Moxfield worked great. I would recommend using it if you just use your phone to build or switch between your phone and computer. ManaBox is an app I tested, and it's fine for building decks, but you can't share the decks, and the experience is much worse. It got a 32 compared to Moxfield 69. Either way, just use Moxfield. It's pretty bad, but it is the best offline solution I could find. If you use real cards to build or buy cards before you build the deck, then upload these onto a deck builder so you can track your collection and or share your decks, then I will recommend Delverlands. I personally can't test it, but there is a clear consensus with people that I talk to that it's the best for Android. If you need a card scanner on iOS, there's no good solution. If your favorite deck builder was not said yet, I'm either about to roast it because the ones I didn't mention yet are horrible, or I missed it entirely. DeckStats doesn't have playtesting. The card search function is pretty bad. It scored 34 on my measurement. AetherHub is unnecessarily complicated, doesn't have playtesting, doesn't allow bulk card importing after you've made the deck, doesn't have categories, and has a weak search engine. It's very difficult and slow to use, and doesn't have very many results when you're searching for decks. It got a 36 on my measurement. ManaStack doesn't have a search feature, and you can't bulk import cards to add to the list without replacing the list. MTG Goldfish doesn't have a search feature and doesn't have playtesting, but I will say it's very good at being very simple and streamlined. Just add in the cards and it has the list of cards. I'm not convinced that that's a niche that needs to be filled and that it being simple is really an upside, but it does do very well at it. ManaBox doesn't allow you to add cards in bulk after you've started the list, which makes importing from EDHREC impossible. You can't share your decks except in plain text, and that's a pain for the recipient, and the card search is pretty weak. And you can't search other decks. It scored 34 on my scale. It's pretty bad, but it is the best offline solution I could find. If you need something that works offline, I would definitely recommend ManaBox.